Hi there, welcome to another webinar. So today we have a very special guest, Tim Butler from Innovation Visual. He's going to be talking to us a little bit about digital marketing. Tim, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm, as I say, Tim Butler, and I founded Innovation Visual really out of default, really. I suppose that I was good at digital marketing. I left one role, and the following Monday, before I decided what to do next, which I knew was something different, somebody phoned me up and said, we've got this massive project for a £500,000 travel website. Can you take the lead on digital marketing for it? And that was really the birth. And about just coming up to 6 years ago, I decided to take on some employees, and we're up to 14 people now. So we're a growing agency. And what we do is we focus on the performance side of digital marketing. So we don't build websites. What we do is that we make them work for businesses.
Okay, so tell me about digital marketing then. Is it just for businesses that sell online? What is it? Talk to me a bit more about digital marketing.
Certainly not for just businesses that sell online. It's just a medium of marketing, and I've come from a time where it was a tiny fraction of marketing. So most of the spend when I started doing digital marketing was going into the big things like TV, and now it's swung the other way, and now more than half of all marketing spend is spent on digital elements. And there's lots and lots of digital elements now to choose from. It's a very fractured landscape, if you like. So we've got everything from getting a presence on social media through to where do you end up on Google when somebody searches for what you do. So it doesn't matter what your business does, you need to be thinking about digital marketing, because it's the place people turn to for answers. And if you want to get found and you want to answer those questions and sell product, you need to be aware of what your digital marketing is. And in fact, a lot of people, in fact, only now do digital marketing because it's so much more measurable than things like magazine ads or broadcast ads and that kind of thing. They've given up on those other areas completely, because they know if they spend X on digital marketing, they're going to get X times whatever multiple back in terms of profitability. So yeah, huge area, and it's something that everybody needs to be aware of.
And what, obviously at this current time, do you see anything happening at the moment then with digital marketing, with sort of everything that's going on in the wider economy, environment?
Yeah, it's so you imagine you were spending a load of money on billboards in city centres, or you were advertising on those spaces above seats in trains, but there's nobody in city centres and there's nobody really sitting on trains. So what are you going to do to find your customers, because they're not where they are? So I think that it's about being where your customers are, and from a B2C, business to consumer sense, customers aren't spending time in public areas getting exposed to those big outside billboards. Reading magazine sales have actually plummeted because people aren't going into the likes of WH Smith's, or they're not picking up magazines to read on trains or traveling and things like that. So print publications have taken a real hammering, and they're even now moving online. So everything is going online. And I think that now businesses need to think about digital marketing as the new rent. If you're not paying for digital marketing, you're not on the high street. You're not in front of your customers. So it's so necessary, I think, that it's like rent. Okay, well, if we were going to put a shop on the high street, we want to be in that nice shiny shopping centre which has loads of footfall. We're going to invest a lot of money in rent for that shopping space. Well, people are now online, but you need to be spending solid amounts of budget to be in front of people as if you're in that lovely shiny shopping centre with lots of footfall. You need the footfall, but the footfall's now digital footfall.
Really interesting, because what I'm reading kind of there is that 12 months ago, you could have had a space in the retail, and obviously there are still some retail units that are going to still continue to work, but only in certain industries. But what you're basically saying is, because people aren't going out as much, they're not picking up the stuff because of potentially contamination. They're not, going and stepping foot into so many stores, that actually, that front space, that store, effectively, that shop is now, paying for being online and being viewed by the consumer online, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. Digital is the new rent, and don't spend enough, and you'll end up in a seedy backwater, a back street that hardly anybody goes past, and that's the reality of the situation. The problem is that you don't get the protection of a 5-year lease on your shiny shop anymore. You can find yourself, you might have been in the shiny shop last week, but your competitors are now paying more, and you're sliding further and further towards retail oblivion. But it's the same thing for business to business as well. This is not, if you're listening to this and you run a B2B business and you think, well, that's okay, I don't need to worry about digital marketing so much. I don't need to up my spend in digital marketing. Well, you do. I mean, think about all the money that B2B businesses spend on exhibitions and events, going and being at places like, we have a client that goes to Farnborough Air Show. I mean, I can tell you, the huge amounts of money it costs to be a thing like that for a few days a year, but it delivers results. But that budget now has to go somewhere else because that event's not happening. Same for those people that rely on telemarketing as B2B businesses. You cannot now have telemarketers phoning companies up saying, hey, can I speak to your such and such a person? Because nobody's going to give out the mobile number of the such and such a person to allow the telemarketer to phone them up. So telemarketing must be dead in the water, and all that budget is going somewhere else, and it's going into, okay, well, if they're not going to a show, maybe they're searching on Google for what they need. If they're not being called up, maybe what they're doing is they're researching good blog posts and looking at content. We need to be in front of them there. So that it's huge transformation. But when I say transformation, it's a transformation between what was happening anyway. It's just suddenly speeded that transformation up.
That's really, really interesting. Because do you think then, obviously we've got, if people are buying online, the kind of customer journey before might have been they go into the store, they pop into a couple of different stores, they look at different stuff to make that purchase, or if it's consumable, they might just go and purchase it. If they're buying online now, do you think that means there's more comparison or perhaps more thought put into some of those purchases, and because there's obviously a lot more variety online? Do you think that's the case?
Well, you can ask yourself about your own shopping habits, and different people have different ways of doing things. And the ability to basically jump from one store to another is much easier in the online space than having to walk, even if it's 200 meters down the road to the next store to see whether you're going to save 50p. You can do that with a couple of clicks when you're online. So there is a degree to which you get more comparison shopping. You might get more people who are price sensitive in that way, but that doesn't mean that there's not a space for premium brands. That doesn't mean that there's not a space for positioning yourself against competitors in different ways, such as service. I mean, for example, I'm a big fan of Patagonia because of the way that they have very strong environmental policies. All of their cotton products are organic and things like that, and they use a lot of recycled materials within their outdoor equipment. I wouldn't go onto Patagonia's website, look at a waterproof, and then say, oh, I'm now going to go outdoors and see if I can find a cheap regatta one, because I've bought into the brand. So in many ways, if you can position yourself strongly as a brand and be powerful in that aspect, it nullifies the need to be scrabbling around for the price hunters or competing on a price basis. That's what I would say.
It's a great point. So I mean, what do you think are, if somebody, maybe it's new, maybe it's existing people that have been doing e-commerce for a while or selling online for a while, what do you think are the biggest mistakes people make in that space then?
There's quite a few. When we onboard new clients and we lift up the hood, there's often a lot of things that could be done much better, and I think that's a shame, actually, because I think part of the issue is that people go to the company that builds them the website. They also go to them to try and get the performance digital marketing aspects, things like paid search and organic search from them. And a creative agency that is about designing pretty looking websites, they're not set up to deliver, hardcore ROI performance service, which is what we're about. So unfortunately, we do come across a lot of issues when we first onboard new clients. I suppose if you had to come up with the top three, the first one would be data tracking. And I know you guys at Stryde, you're all about accurate dashboards, you're all about the balanced scorecard and things like that. And you might be looking at data, and you'd be horrified to think that maybe it was inaccurate by 25 to 50%, purely because the way people have set up their Google Analytics account is incorrect in terms of it's not accurate. And it's not incorrect in terms of there's something overtly wrong in that it's broken. It's incorrect in that the filtered views aren't set up properly. So if you take an example of a company that sells only in the UK and it won't service clients outside of the UK, you have to have a view on Google Analytics that looks at only UK traffic. Because if you go, oh wow, our website's got 1,000 visitors a month, and actually 500 of them are from outside the UK and you can't service them, it's irrelevant. So your numbers then, by eliminating half the traffic because it's irrelevant, your conversion rate's wrong. So your time on page is wrong. Your bounce rate is wrong, because you're taking into account a whole load of people that aren't the people you want to talk to. And it's not just geography, it's things like there's lots of spam data going into people's accounts that needs to be filtered out. There's the employees working on the account, which is even harder to eliminate now with dynamic IP address at people's homes. But you need to think about, you can have a filter, which is if somebody is logged into the admin part of their of your website, you can exclude them then from visitor stats. But simple things like that don't get done. And I think when it comes to Google Analytics, it's also things like goal tracking. So lack of goal tracking or poor setup of goal tracking, and also not including goal value. So I know that you guys at Stryde, you like to work with clients and calculate things like lifetime customer value. That's brilliant, because that is the same thing that we do. We want to talk to our customers about lifetime customer value. So you take your customer lifetime value, and if you can break it down by different customer groups that you can actually identify, even better. But let's take a standard customer lifetime value. If somebody fills out your contact form on your website, take the first metric. So out of all the people that fill out your contact form on your website, say 50% of them are either spam or trying to sell you something. So 10 people have filled that form out, only 5 are valid leads. Then if you can convert 80% of those into customers, then you've got four customers from that. So you need to look at your lifetime customer value, and you need to assign a financial value to the goal based on your real measured conversion rates, and also, stripping out again spam contact forms. But you need to be tracking your phone number as well. But your phone number may actually convert a lot better than your contact form. So you actually have different goal values for different places. If you're doing e-commerce, you've got to have enhanced e-commerce tracking, Otherwise, you're missing a whole load of data. So you don't just want to see total value from a conversion. You want to see that broken down and see the product information below that. So not having all of that is probably the number one issue. And I know I spent loads of time answering that one part of three. I think the second biggest problem is people not spending money on organic search. They find that they've got a paid medium, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Google Ads, or whether it be YouTube or something like that. They find a paid medium where they pay X and then they get Y back, and they go, well, this is great. I'll just keep throwing thousands at this paid medium. And they've got to think about, why do you pay money to access this audience? It's about audience access. Well, if you've got strong organic presence, you can access that audience not for paying each time, but for your investment in the content that attracts them and the technical SEO behind that.
The cost per acquisition should be better then.
Cost for acquisition over the medium to long term, and this is the problem, because short term you do a whole load of SEO and people go, well, look, we're spending thousands on this SEO stuff and we're not seeing much in the way of increased sales. It takes time to happen, because you are competing against thousands of websites to appear in the top 10 and ideally in the top 5. And if we can, top 3, and yes, you do get the best results being number 1. So this takes time, because you have to outdo everybody else, and therefore you probably have to overinvest. You have to invest more than these other people, or we like to do brains beats brawn, so we can get better results for lower spend by being smarter about it. But people don't tend to invest in this organic because it's hard, takes time. And
How long do you think that does take, Tim? Sorry to interrupt there. How long do you think that does take?
It very much depends. So I had a conversation yesterday with a prospective client. He asked exactly the same question. And I said, well, when we start working with somebody, we say, you've got to give us 3 months to really show defined, measurable difference on organic in terms of the visibility. But it's very much what the client is. So we have a technical client, very, very slow moving market in terms of, these are huge, big contract commitments. So it takes a long time to nurture people through the buying process. For those guys, it took more than 6 months to really start making an impact with organic in terms of delivering leads. On the flip side, we've got a recent new e-commerce client, and we came in pretty much focused on organic. They had somebody else doing their paid, and they were doing some good numbers, and they were having a good uplift with COVID, and they thought, oh, life is great, we do need to do this organic, but we don't think it's going to make a great difference. I recently took, and because I looked at it actually this week, I took the last 30 days of business for them, and I took the best ever 30 days before we started working with them, which was back in, I think, June time. So we'd not been working with them for very long. And the uplift purely from organic in revenue was 26%. Now, that's good, but then you see some numbers on some digital marketing websites, 300% increase in sales. It's like, well, because they sold one thing and now they sold 3 things. It's easy if it's like that. That revenue jump for just that 30-day period equates to just under 50 grand in increased revenue. Wow. Not total revenue for 30 days, increased.
So they're already
organic. So you think about that is less than 3 months to deliver that kind of value. It goes to show that that's a site doing a lot of money, mature in the market. We can, with some smart techniques and some thinking about it, deliver results really quickly. And I'm super proud of the team on that result. So it's really good. So organic, you do normally need to be patient, but the other thing about organic versus paid as the way to drive your revenue is that if you do it through paid, you don't have a defensible competitive advantage, right? So you're here, you're making loads of money. For every £1 you spend, say you get £3 back. Right, that's great. Your competitor comes in and they start doing it. So they drive up the cost per click, and maybe because they're doing offers, your conversion rate falls down. So now you're only making £2 for every pound you spend. Then another competitor comes in and they start competing as well. What can you do on paid to defend that position? Well, you just have to keep bidding more. You actually have to then do a lot more work on your conversion rate. So how can I increase conversion rate? How can I increase customer lifetime value?
Now, it's a bit like if you're on the high street, you've got those that are in really good locations that naturally that's the same as having good organic, and then you've got those that are around that side alley that they've got somebody stood there with a sign saying go visit us. Unless you have that sign stood there and you're paying that person to do it, nobody knows that you exist around the corner.
Yeah. And the thing about the organic is it's lasting. So if we deliver a great piece of content every week for a new client, at the end of the year they'll have 52 great pieces of content which will be designed to help with the ranking of the site through various different means, right? If their competitor says we need to get on this organic search thing because we're getting, we're nowhere on Google and these guys are smashing it, it's going to take them some time to write those 52 great pieces of content. Now, if you keep writing the 52, further next year, you write another 52 pieces of content, you're now at 104, but by the end of that year, they've still only got to 52, so you're still ahead of them. And you're still knocking it out of the ballpark, and their MD is getting even more frustrated, going, hold on, what are we doing here, guys? You said you were going to do something about this and you're nowhere. So you can actually get a much better competitive advantage by investing in organic and have long-term value in the business. And then if you think about a business owner wanting to exit, if a business owner wants to exit and he talks to somebody who's coming to look at the business and they do digital due diligence, and they see that all the revenue coming from a bulk of the revenue is coming from paid media, they're like, okay, well, we're going to have to keep paying for that. Whereas if you're buying a business and the business owner goes, here you go, 80% of our revenue comes from organic traffic from our site, which is highly defendable. Just keep doing the same thing and that's going to happen. And, once you've got that position, it's more of a maintenance thing. That business is going to have way, way more value, because the website is now an asset. And that, I think, is one of the things that we talk to our clients about, is about thinking of your website not as a marketing expense, but as an asset, something that should appear on the balance sheet almost, in terms of this delivers this much value.
So I know we've talked a little bit about this before, but what, in times of sort of pandemics or global crises, should businesses continue to invest in digital marketing? What's your take on that?
I think they should probably over-invest in digital marketing. I mean, the stats going back to previous recessions, and I'm not even, I'm going back before even the financial crisis. If you look at the data from things like the 80s and stuff like that, the people like P&G, Procter & Gamble and Unilever, the people that run big brands, they know that if you increase your share of voice to be greater than your share of market in the times of recession, you will get a much greater uplift as the market then picks back up, right? And in the digital world, the smart money is on those people that go out, they increase their digital share of voice, and they put it beyond their current market share, and they take market share now, and then when the market picks back up, then they're going to get much greater results. And so a lot of people did cut paid search budgets when the pandemic first hit, and there was a lot of panicking. And there are also particularly in B2B, there are people who are struggling with cash flow, so they're having to cut budgets and things like that. But cutting it out of marketing is a short-term thing, which is going to hurt you in the medium term. So you should really be looking to increase investment. It's very measurable. It is a bit scary. And there's two things that I've seen as well. So there's the scary thing with B2B clients where, people aren't making decisions, and you're saying that you need to keep investing just to keep your lead pipeline at the same level. So if your market is shrinking, you need to invest more to keep your absolute revenue numbers the same. And
Yeah,
so
okay.
you've got to grab market share there. But the interesting thing for a lot of e-commerce clients and people that are not clients, because we advise our clients and get them to understand this, but people that we start talking to as prospects with e-commerce, they're going, well, we don't need to change digital marketing because we've grown by 15% in the pandemic. And so we're doing everything right. And then when you tell them that the benchmark in their industry is that their industry has grown by 85% in the pandemic and they've only grown by 15, so they've missed out on 70% of the growth that they could have had, then they start paying attention. I think there's a lot of e-commerce businesses that are falling into the trap of complacency at the moment because the online sales have really gone up and they're seeing growth, but they've not benchmarked that growth against their sector and gone, hold on a minute, guys, we should have grown by 50%. We've grown by 20. Why are we not growing like the whole market is? Who's taking more market share? So very interesting from that viewpoint. I think those people are going to get caught with their, should we say, trousers around their ankles in the next year if we see discretionary spending drop. So people like cycle retailers, those kind of people that have seen massive uplifts. When people aren't buying a new bike every year, which they don't, they're going to suddenly think, oh, well, hold on a minute. I didn't actually get all that I could have done. And I'm now starting the next year, which is going to be tough on the back foot.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense there, particularly around sort of, the cycle of how some people have made certain purchases, like a bike or those sorts of things, specific to this time because of the problem it solves now. But the challenge is now, those problems are now solved. So once you move forward into the next year, even if things are repeated, the problem's still solved. People still have, So I think that's a really interesting point there for people. Let's say somebody. You obviously talked about some things that people are doing well, some things they're not. If somebody said, how do I health check my business? How do I find out how I'm doing? What would you, from a digital perspective, what would you say?
Interestingly, I mean, that's part of our onboarding process that we go through, and we actually look at lots of different aspects of what we would call their digital footprint. So it's their website, what they're doing in terms of social media, as well as SEO, paid search. Also, what's happening in terms of their market space, their competitors, and we've got a process to do that. We've actually got a guide that you can download off our website, so I can share that with people from this video. So this guide is a walkthrough for an e-commerce site specifically to walk you through understanding how to benchmark where you are against different elements in the mix. So technical SEO, content strategy, things like paid search, how well are you really doing? Walk through it, Excel spreadsheet to put into numbers just to give you some idea. But it's actually the process of walking through a benchmarking exercise that is so valuable. Yes, the numbers are important because it's going to tell you where you're weak and you might not realize. But I see a lot of marketing managers, I see a lot of marketing directors, MDs and CEOs even. There's been so much going on, and from making sure staff are okay to what are we doing about our office or whatever. And they've been busy, and marketing has been really busy with dealing with the new normal. It's been incredibly hard for them to take that step back and actually, go right back and go, okay, let's look at these things with objective eyes. How well are we doing these things? And it's that whole process of just going, hey, do you know what? We actually, our rankings have been dropping. So yeah, we've been getting on more organic search, but actually we haven't kept on top of this, and we haven't realized that, our competitors have been eroding our SEO position or our paid search. One of the things we often see, paid search, when you dig in to a paid search account, sometimes you find that the brand terms that the company owns are actually supporting the profitability of the whole paid search account. So, you'll have less, should we say, less good agencies than us running paid search accounts for clients, and they'll present these numbers and they'll go, here we go, you spent £10,000 on your paid search this month and you got back £20,000 of the revenue. Aren't we brilliant because we did this, right? And then you look under the hood of that and you go, well, hold on a minute, £15,000 worth of those sales came from brand terms that the company owns, and therefore has probably the top 2 or 3 at least positions on Google organic search, and you spent only £1,000 on doing that. So you spent £9,000 on terms that delivered only £5,000 worth of revenue. So actually the paid search account is rubbish. And did you even need to spend that money on those brand terms? Because you probably would have got the traffic anyway organically, because you dominate the results for the brand terms that you own. So hold on a minute, guys. Looking under the hood, let's actually validate this. And I've seen that on too many occasions when we've gone into new clients and it's like, wow, did you know how loss-making your paid search really was?
I think that's a really, really important point, because I can see that, I can see that being a common mistake made, because sometimes a lot of people do look, it's across the whole business, at top line figures.
Yep.
And don't delve into the detail of the rationale behind how that's happened, and that kind of return on investment from whatever the bits you're doing that you're focusing in on. Yeah.
You're a busy marketing manager and you're trusting your agency, and unfortunately there's with the growth of digital agencies over the past few years, a lot of these agencies didn't invest and haven't invested in the training of their staff. I mean, we're super proud of what we do with our staff. We get them to do at least 8 hours training every month to keep their skills top notch. All of our staff are highly qualified on things like the Google professional certifications, things like HubSpot certifications, Bing certifications. We're a partner, we're a badge partner in organizations like Microsoft Advertising, Google Partners. We've won awards with those guys. We're even on the Google Elevator program, one of the top 30 agencies in the partner program out of over 500 back in 2017. So it's sad, but I think it's because there was a gold rush to the Wild West, and that meant that there was a lot of cowboys, and it's difficult because you talk to some people and they've been stung and it's cost them a lot of money, and it's left them with a very bad taste in their mouth, and that puts them off digital marketing. So
tell me, obviously, I think we're going to have to wrap it up now. Clearly we could talk for a long time on this kind of subject, but thank you so much. What's your so obviously there's going to be people listening that's going to go, look, clearly my business is not in a good place digital marketing wise. I could definitely do with some improvements. If they wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Well, they can come to the website, which is innovationvisual.com, all one word, no hyphens or anything like that. Or they could email info@innovationvisual.com. They can also follow us on Twitter and get in touch that way, or they can find me on LinkedIn as well. So obviously LinkedIn's a good place. But yeah, I mean, we'd love to talk to anybody who thinks they could do better. But there's a lot of things they can do themselves, and I would certainly say at this time, it's a good point to take a breath and maybe take that half a day to step back and do that benchmarking. And if it's useful for your audience to get that benchmarking document and guide, we can share that. Probably I'll give it you so you can put it in the description of the YouTube video. So that'd be good. Yeah.
No, thanks, Tim. Really appreciate your time there, and thanks everyone for listening in.